on introverts. I did a little quick search. I went and Googled top myths of introverts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear.
Yeah, and it took a long time to give me the answer.
That was bad. That was bad.
Okay, so listen to these. Introverts don't like to talk. Introverts are shy. Introverts are rude. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Introverts don't like people. That's even funnier than the earlier comment. Introverts don't like to go out in public. Introverts always want to be alone. Introverts are weird. Introverts are aloof nerds. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Introverts don't know how to relax and have fun. And, I want to guess a lot of introverts feel that that's how they're being looked at. Introverts can fix themselves and become extroverts. See, that's the number one right there that I lived for many years. So, John, talk to us. You're an introvert. Talk to us.
Well, I'll tell you, there's one of the challenging realities in the marketplace is that if you want to become successful in the marketplace, you have to find some way to express yourself.
Okay.
There's a lot of hard data that shows extroverts rise faster and higher within corporate cultures than introverts do.
By simply just externalizing how they're feeling and all that?
They speak first. They are more
Okay.
assertive verbally.
Okay.
They're more likely to circle up after work. They're more likely to build certain kind of relationships. They're more energized by having those relationships. So that all that verbal interaction, all that connection,
Right.
it adds a kind of social capital that can be used to grow their careers.
Yeah.
So when you're an introvert, you just have to deal with that and do it anyway. And what happens is you have to develop a certain skill set around doing it on purpose instead of it just coming naturally.
Is that going to feel natural?
Oh, no, definitely not. Definitely not. And here's the real challenge of this. One of the defining features that separates an introvert from an extrovert is that an introvert wants to collect all of their thought before they say anything, whereas an extrovert collects their thought by beginning to speak, and then they kind of figure out what they want to say. So if you're an introvert...
Man, how many times in my life have I been told, think before you speak?
Yeah.
Or if you're talking too much, like right now,
Well, well, the reality is, if you're an extrovert, you've got some advantages in life. So
Okay.
it's not, it's not all bad to start
Oh,
speaking.
guess what? Because they create that they fill in that gap. Is
Exactly.
that?
Yeah. They're
So
engaging.
I can see
Yep.
how that helps.
Yep.
All right. So that would be very large or sufficient of a gulf for introverts to fill.
Sure.
To fill
Well,
the gap.
imagine the business meeting. Okay. Let's
Okay.
say the manager is an extrovert and the staff person is an introvert.
All right.
And the manager comes in and says, "Here's my idea. We're going to move into El Paso next month. What do you think?" No, really. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, but you pause there.
Mm-hmm.
And look, even though it was like about a 1 second pause, I know I felt it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure some of our listeners also felt it. Let's do this. Ready? Ask the same question, John, and let's go 2 seconds. I know silence is death, supposedly on radio,
Yeah.
but this is for an effect. Okay.
Sure.
This is for go ahead, ask the question again, and let's actually count 2 seconds.
So, team, I think we ought to move into El Paso. What do you think?
Bam. That was 2 seconds.
That was only 2 seconds.
Wow.
So
I felt it, John.
Yeah. And you know how many seconds an introvert is going to need in order to respond honestly to that question?
Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. How many seconds do they need to honestly? I think that you threw that in there.
That's right.
To honestly, all right. I'm going to say 6.
As many as 12 to 16 seconds. No. To get that full response from the introvert. So what happens in business meetings all the time is the manager comes in, peppers with questions, and before the introverts have had a chance to think of their response, they get another question, and then another, and then the manager leaves and he says, "They're all behind me. They all nodded when I
The
talked."
manager, first of all, jumps in like I just did with you.
Mm-hmm.
I just jumped in. You were finishing your thought, but I'm finishing for you, right?
Exactly.
So I jump in because as an extrovert, I don't like that gap, that silence gap. So as an extrovert, I've known over the years how to fill in that gap, right?
Exactly.
So I really haven't given the extrovert the opportunity to speak and give their honest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I'm going to interpret what's going on. And the most common misinterpretation is that silence is agreement.
Correct.
So therefore, if you're silent, therefore I as an extrovert, I'm going to interpret that you agree. And then I actually verbalize stuff like that. Hey, your silence is agreement. Man, how can an introvert then say they don't agree?
Exactly.
So then the manager takes that, quote, feedback that he or she never really got. They just misinterpreted, and they report up or to other managers that, hey, my team or the meeting I just came back, I got really good feedback on this when I really just got a lot of silence. that I misinterpreted.
And I'll say this: the extroverted manager is not the bad guy in this situation.
No.
The introvert has to know that it's going to fall now on them because they're the team member.
So they both have They both have skin in the game.
Exactly.
The managers or the person asking the question, because it could be a peer, right? It could be a peer to peer. The person asking the question has to give a little bit of that gap for that other person to engage, right?
Exactly.
But you're saying the introvert, their skin in the game is what?
Well, their skin in the game is the yes, but how part of it. Because much of the time, that introvert is going to have to carry out what they have not actually agreed to.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
now,
it's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, what happens as it plays out in this very, very common scenario, the manager thinks we're all green lights here. Here we go. We're getting started. The introvert is still pausing and thinking, I don't know what I think about this. I don't really know if this is going to work.
Yeah.
They still haven't verbalized that, and it's their actual disengagement that causes the project to fail.
And they have to speak up.
Exactly.
It's not realistic to expect 16 seconds of silence.
Exactly.
But it's also not realistic. This is the hard part for the extrovert. It's also not realistic not to give somebody a good solid 3 to 4 seconds.
Right.
Or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and if
it is. I see it. I see it.
If for the introvert, if they understand what it is they're looking at, what the situation is that they're in, a really great little tool to teach yourself if you're the introvert is to just say, "Hold it a minute, let me think."
Oh, nice.
Rather than sitting in silence, just say, "Hold it a minute." Just
say that you're going to need a little bit of those seconds to think.
Exactly.
That's great. All right. Well, we are coming up to another one of our short segments. So let's take a break here, and our mid segment. Let's. If you just tuned in, we just finished our second segment on introverts. We're going to continue this theme throughout the rest of the show, but we're also taking some bite-sized segments to talk about other things. So now we're going to talk for a couple minutes about
4 phases of a team.
Now, what in the world is that about, John? 4 phases of a team, and how does this relate to business and management? What is this all about?
Well, here's the thing: that when you put 4 people in a room, or you put 10 people in a room, and you need to have them work together to accomplish something, certain predictable stages happen.
Okay.
So, Maurice, tell us about those stages.
All right. The best example that I think is a good example. Let's say you and your family are taking a trip to Disney World. Okay. Or just imagine you take a cruise, all right? And if you're in a cruise, there are calm waters and then there's rough waters. And not everybody behaves the same during those waters. Mm-hmm. Now, all managers want what? The perfect scenario.
Sure.
Calm waters, fast speeds.
Mm-hmm.
And what gets in the way of a lot of managers is, of course, external things that make stormy weathers, and I can't go as fast, right?
Correct.
And so the 4 faces of a team is simply the 4 tools, 4 phases that managers need to understand that every team goes through in and out of their life cycle. Mm-hmm. So the 4 phases are real simple. Okay, mm-hmm. I'm going to cover them real fast. The first phase is forming. The second phase is storming. The third phase is norming, and then the fourth phase is performing. So, I mean, who doesn't want to get to the fourth phase? I mean, let's start from that end. We want to perform. I mean, we want to be on a boat. I went with some friends fishing. Our good friends from Cornerstone Flooring. Mm-hmm. We went fishing, and it was awesome. We went out to the Gulf, and man, I mean, we were flying. Then we hit some rough water. Mm-hmm. That hurt. Okay, that really hurt. Why? Because we hit some stormy weather. Okay, so everybody wants to get to performing. All right. But what gets in the way is a lot of managers don't manage their teams well through the other phases. First of all, the first one, forming. They have a team of 10 people. They haven't filled in 2 jobs because they can't find candidates. So they have 2 positions that are not available or aren't filled. They haven't yet formed, but they're trying to get to performing. It's like having a baseball team without a first baseman and trying to win games. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So you first have to complete the forming stage.
Right.
Then immediately, as soon as everybody comes in, everybody's going to start storming. They're going to start jockeying for position. So there's a lot of angst and a lot of pushing and shoving between themselves.
Yeah, would it be fair to say storming is when all of the assumptions come out?
Yeah. I thought this, I thought that, I thought this and the other, and then the reality sets in. Then the only way you get past that, a lot of companies and most teams never survive storming. And a lot of companies don't ever get past storming. which is why they can't get to real performance, and that's very frustrating. That's where you and I usually find companies.
Exactly.
At some phase of storming. The way to get out of storming into norming is processes and people. You have to align people's styles, decision making, and personalities, and align the processes to make sure they're up to speed with the speed of the company. So the key is processes, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
Which allows people to get into a groove of things, which is what norming becomes. It becomes, oh, so this is the way we now do things around here. That's why people have to be open for change. So as they do that more and more and more, they're norming with each other, which will then they'll move into what? Performance. So
That's right.
We're going to be talking about the 4 stages of teams in our in one of our future segments, in one of our programs. So keep those in mind: forming, storming, norming, and performing. As managers, keep an eye on and see which ones your team is at, and stay in contact with us. Tune into our radio, and we'll show you how to manage your teams throughout those phases.
That's it.
Excellent.
Winning in the workplace is the most practical and results-driven training to increase your skills as a professional manager and leader. So are you ready to win in your workplace? Visit www.winningintheworkplace.com.